Captain Taeho Kim pressed his face against the cold metal window of his ship's cockpit. The steel wind drifted slowly through the asteroid field of the Kronos system. Chunks of space rock floated past his view like giant sleeping monsters. Were small as cars, others were big as buildings. All of them could crush his ship if he wasn't careful. "Captain, we should leave this place," said Ginwoo Park from the engine room. His voice crackled through the old communication system. "The Imperial patrol ships come through here every few hours. We don't want to meet them." Taeho smiled. Jinwoo worried too much. That's what made him a good engineer, but a bad smuggler. "Relax, Jinwoo. We're just taking a shortcut to the outer rim. No one will find us here." The Steel Wind was an old cargo ship. She had more dents than paint, and more repairs than original parts. But she was fast when she needed to be, and she was quiet. Perfect for a man who made his living moving things that other people didn't. Want moved? Taeho had been running smuggling jobs for 10 years. He knew every hidden route between the core worlds and the outer rim. He could slip past Imperial blockades like a ghost. He could outrun bounty hunters in ships twice as fast as his own. But he had never seen anything like the signal that appeared on his scanner. The distress beacon came from somewhere deep in the asteroid field. It was weak and broken, like a dying man's whisper. Most captains would ignore it. Distress beacons in the Kronos system usually meant pirates or worse. But something about this one made Taeho curious. "Jinwoo, are you seeing this signal?" "Yes, Captain. It's coming from Grid 77 Alpha. That's impossible. Nothing should be out there." Taeho turned his ship toward the signal. The Steel Wind moved carefully between the floating rocks. Her engines hummed quietly. After 20 minutes of flying, they found the source of the beacon. A ship hung in the darkness between two massive asteroids. It was much bigger than the Steel Wind. The hull was painted white with blue stripes, the colors of the scientific research division. But the paint was old and faded. Parts of the ship were twisted and broken. It looked like it had been floating here for a very long time. "That's the research vessel New Horizon," Jinwoo said. His voice was full of surprise. "But that ship disappeared 20 years ago." Taeho studied the dead ship through his scanner. No life signs, no power readings, but the hull was still intact. That meant the inside might still have valuable equipment. Scientific research ships carried the best computers and scanning devices. That kind of technology was worth a fortune on the black market. "We're going aboard," Taeho announced. "Captain, this is a bad idea." "Gosh. Ships don't just disappear for 20 years and then show up in asteroid fields. Something happened to that crew. Exactly why we need to check it out. If something killed them, it might have left behind something valuable." Jinwoo was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. "I'll get the boarding equipment ready." The Steel Wind connected to the research vessel with a flexible tunnel. Taeho put on his environmental suit and grabbed his plasma cutter. Jinwoo carried a bag full of tools for bypassing security systems. They floated through the tunnel and into the dead ship. The New Horizon was dark and cold. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness as they moved down the main corridor. The ship's gravity. Generators were offline, so they had to pull themselves along the walls. Everything floated in the zero gravity: papers, coffee cups, personal items from the crew. "Look at this," Ginwoo whispered. He pointed to a section of the wall that was covered in strange marks. They looked like claw scratches, but they were too big to be made by any human tool. Taeho shined his light on the marks. They were deep and went in patterns that almost looked like writing. Pirates, maybe, or some kind of alien wildlife. They found the first body in the laboratory section. The man was still strapped to his chair, but his face was frozen in a scream. His eyes were wide open and staring at nothing. There were no wounds on his body, no signs of violence. He looked like he had been scared to death. "Captain, we should leave now," Ginwoo said. But Taeho was already moving toward the ship's computer core. The main computers were still functional, running on emergency power. The screens showed data streams and navigation charts. Most of it was in scientific code that he couldn't read. But one file caught his attention. Project Genesis Echo. Read aloud. Classification: Ultra secret. Navigation coordinates. Void sector grid. 2947 Alpha. The Void sector. Ginwu's voice was full of fear. No one goes there. It's uninhabitable. It's nothing but empty space and radiation storms. Taeho opened the file. It contained a set of coordinates and a star map showing a location deep in the Void sector. The file was marked with warnings in 6 different languages. All of them said the same thing: do not approach, extreme danger, authorized personnel only. This has to be worth something, Taeho said. Secret coordinates to a location no one is supposed to visit. Someone will pay good money for this information. Ginwu was working on another computer terminal. Captain, I'm reading some kind of automated message. It's been broadcasting for 20 years. It says, warning. Project Genesis Echo has been compromised. Do not attempt to access the Nexus. Repeat. Do not attempt to access the Nexus. Before Taeho could ask what a Nexus was, alarms started ringing throughout the ship. Jinwoo looked at his scanner and his face went pale. Imperial patrol ships. Captain, 3 of them. They're heading straight for us. Taeho grabbed the data storage device and started downloading everything from the computer core. The transfer bar moved slowly across the screen. Too slowly. How long? Jinwoo asked. 2 minutes. We don't have 2 minutes. Those ships will be here in 90 seconds. The download finished with 10 seconds to spare. Taeho grabbed the storage device, and they ran back to the steel wind. The tunnel disconnected automatically. They were flying within 30 seconds. The Imperial ships appeared on their scanner, just as they reached the edge of the asteroid. Field. 3 fast attack cruisers with enough firepower to turn the steel wind into space dust. But Taeho knew these asteroids better than the Imperial pilots. He flew his ship between the rocks, using them as cover. They're trying to lock onto us, Jinwoo reported. Let them try. The steel wind slipped between 2 massive asteroids and disappeared into the darkness. The Imperial ships followed, but they were too big and too slow. After an hour of cat and mouse, Taeho had lost them completely. As they flew toward the outer rim, Taeho looked at the data storage device. He had no idea what he had just stolen. He didn't know that the coordinates would make him the most wanted man in the galaxy. He didn't know that downloading those files had just started a chain of events that would threaten every living thing in known space. All he knew was that he had something valuable, and in his line of work, that was enough. 3 days after escaping the Imperial patrol ships, Captain Taeho Kim knew he was in serious trouble. The steel wind was hiding in an old mining station on the edge of the outer rim. But even here he could see the signs. Too many bounty hunters. Too many Imperial ships asking questions. Too many people looking for him. Captain, we have a problem, said Haijin Choi from the pilot's seat. She was young but skilled, with quick reflexes and steady hands. I'm picking up chatter on the communication channels. Someone put a price on our heads. Taeho looked at the data pad she handed him. The bounty notice made his stomach drop. 5 million credits for the steel wind and her crew. Dead or alive. That was enough money to buy a small planet. What did we steal that's worth 5 million credits? Asked Dong Hai in SEO. He was cleaning his plasma rifle, as he did every morning. Dong Haiyan had been a soldier before joining the crew. He knew weapons better than anyone Taeho had ever met. But whatever it is, everyone wants it. Jinwoo Park walked into the common area carrying a cup of coffee and a worried expression. Captain, I've been analyzing the data we downloaded from the research ship. Most of it is scientific reports about something called the Nexus. The coordinates point to a location in the Void sector, but the files are full of warnings. What kind of warnings? The research team found something out there. Something old. The reports mention ancient ruins and technology that shouldn't exist, but the files are corrupted. I can't read all of them. Taeho was about to ask more questions when the station's alarm system started ringing. A voice echoed through the corridors. All ships prepare for emergency departure. Imperial fleet approaching. This is not a drill. Through the window, Taeho could see the massive shapes of Imperial warships dropping out of hyperspace. At least a dozen ships, led by a command cruiser that was bigger than the mining station itself. They found us, Haijin said. How did they find us? Got questions later. Flying now. Taeho ran to the cockpit. Donghyun, get to the guns. Ginwoo, give me everything the engines have got. The steel wind launched from the station just as the Imperial ships opened fire. Laser beams cut through space like red lightning. ... Ships were trying to escape too, but the Imperial fleet was ready for them. One by one, the fleeing vessels were either destroyed or forced to surrender. They're not just looking for us, Haijin observed as she flew the ship between the laser blasts. They're stopping everyone. She was right. The Imperial fleet was creating a blockade around the entire sector. No one was getting in or out without being searched. This wasn't a normal patrol. This was a military operation. The steel wind slipped past the Imperial ships and jumped to hyperspace. For a moment, everyone was quiet. Then Jinwoo spoke up from the engine room. Captain, I'm reading something strange. The hyperspace route we're using is being monitored. Someone is tracking our jump signature. Can you block it? Can try, but it will take time. We need to find somewhere safe to hide. Taeho thought about their options. They couldn't go to any of the normal smuggler hideouts. Those would be watched now. They needed somewhere unexpected. Somewhere the Imperial Navy wouldn't think to look. Set. Course for Kepler Station, he decided. It's a neutral trading post. The Imperials can't just attack it without causing a diplomatic incident. Kepler Station was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. It was owned by a consortium of alien traders who didn't care much about human politics. Ships from dozens of different species docked there every day. It was the perfect place to disappear. But when the steel wind arrived, Taeho realized they weren't the only ones with that idea. The station was full of bounty hunters, Imperial agents, and aliens he didn't recognize. Everyone seemed to be looking for someone. We need supplies and information, Taeho told his crew. But we stay together and we stay alert. The station's main marketplace was crowded and noisy. Merchants sold everything from weapons to exotic foods. But Taeho noticed that many of the conversations stopped when he walked by. Word was spreading that the steel wind was here. They found what they were looking for. In the station's information center, Dr. So-young Kim was sitting alone at a corner table, reading from a datapad. She was middle-aged with gray hair and tired eyes. She looked like a professor, which is exactly what she was. You're the crew of the Steel Wind, she said before Taeho could introduce himself. I've been waiting for you. Who are you? Dr. So-young Kim. I'm an archaeologist. I study ancient alien civilizations. I think you have something that belongs to me. Taeho sat down across from her. We don't have anything that belongs to anyone. The coordinates you downloaded from the New Horizon. It was part of the original research team 20 years ago. I was supposed to be on that ship when it disappeared. What happened to it? We found something in the void sector. Something that should have been left alone. The research team was divided. Some wanted to study it. Others wanted to destroy it. In the end, they decided to go without me. I never heard from them again. What did you find? A structure, ancient. Beyond anything we've ever discovered, the aliens who built it called it the Nexus. We think it's some kind of control system that regulates the fundamental forces of space and time. Taeho felt a chill run down his spine. Control system for what? Reality itself. The Nexus maintains the balance between different dimensions. It keeps the universe stable. But it's old, and it's breaking down. The research team thought they could fix it or maybe even use it as a weapon. Now everyone wants those coordinates. Not everyone. The Imperial Navy thinks they can weaponize the Nexus, control it, and they can control the galaxy. But there are others who want to make sure no one ever reaches it. Before Dr. So-young Kim could explain more, the lights in the marketplace flickered. Emergency alarms started ringing throughout the station. A voice echoed over the communication system. All vessels prepare for immediate departure. The station is under attack. Through the nearest window, Taeho could see ships approaching. But these weren't Imperial vessels. They were sleek and dark, with designs he didn't recognize. And they were firing on anything that moved. Bounty hunters, Donghyun said, checking his weapon. Looks like someone got tired of waiting. The lead ship was bigger than the others, with weapon systems that belonged on a military cruiser. As it came closer, Taeho could see the name painted on its hull, Revenge of Minseok. Minseok Jong Kim whispered, "He's the most dangerous bounty hunter in the galaxy. If he's here, it means the price on your head just got a lot higher." The station shook as the first explosions hit. People were running and screaming. Ships were trying to escape from the docking bays, but the bounty hunters were ready for them. "We need to get back to our ship," Taeho said. "Wait," Dr. So-Young Kim grabbed his arm. "Take me with you. I know more about the Nexus than anyone alive. You're going to need my help." "Why should we trust you?" "Because in about 10 minutes this station is going to be full of Imperial troops, bounty hunters, and alien agents. All of them want those coordinates. Right now, I'm the only person who can tell you why everyone is willing to kill for them." Another explosion shook the station. This one was closer. Through the smoke and chaos, Taeho could see armed figures. Moving through the marketplace, the hunt for the Steel Wind had begun. "All right, Doctor, welcome to the crew. But if you're lying to us, you'll regret it." Dr. So-Young Kim smiled grimly. "Captain, if I'm lying to you, we'll all be dead long before regret becomes an issue." As they ran toward the docking bay, Taeho realized that stealing those coordinates had been the worst mistake of his life. But it was too late to turn back. Now, the chase had begun, and everyone in the galaxy seemed to want a piece of him. The Steel Wind flew through the darkness of deep space, far from any star system. Captain Taeho Kim had been running for 2 weeks now, jumping from one hiding place to another, but every time they stopped, someone found them. Imperial ships, bounty hunters, and now strange alien vessels he had never seen before. "Captain, we're running low on fuel," Ginwoo Park reported from the engine room. "And the hyperdrive is starting to overheat. Need to find somewhere safe to make repairs." Dr. So-Young Kim looked up from her data pad. She had been studying the stolen coordinates for days, trying to understand what they had stumbled into. "There's a system about 6 hours from here. It's not on any of the standard navigation charts. Why not?" Taeho asked. "Because it's controlled by the Krell. They don't usually allow other species to visit their territory." Dong Hyen, SEO, looked up from cleaning his weapons. "The Krell are warriors.
Yes.
They shoot first and ask questions later." "Not these Krell," Dr. So-Young Kim said. "The ones in this system are different. They're scientists and explorers. They might be willing to help us." Taeho didn't like the idea of flying into alien territory, but they were running out of options. Set course for the Krell system, but everyone stay ready for a fight. The journey took them through a region of space that seemed empty of life. No ships, no stations, no signs of civilization. But as they approached the coordinates Dr. So-Young Kim had given them, things began to change. The first sign was a massive structure floating in the void. It was clearly artificial, but unlike anything built by humans. The surface was covered in strange symbols that seemed to move and shift as they watched. "What is that thing?" Ajin Choi asked from the pilots. "Seat. It's a beacon," Dr. So-Young Kim explained. "The Krell use them to mark their territory. But this one is different. It's broadcasting a message." The message came through their communication system in a dozen different languages. Most of them were alien, but one was in standard human speech. Ships carrying Project Genesis echo data. "Are welcome. Follow the navigation signal to the meeting point." They know about the coordinates, Taeho realized. What do they know? Because they've been watching for anyone who might find them. Dr. So-Young Kim said. "The Krell have been guarding the secrets of the Nexus for longer than human civilization has existed." The navigation signal led them to a hidden station built inside a massive asteroid. But as they approached, Taeho saw that they weren't alone. Ships from at least 6 different alien species were docked at the station. He recognized some of them from the galactic databases, Zephyrians, Ethereals, and others he had only heard about in stories. This is either a trap or the strangest alliance. In galactic history, Dong Hyen muttered. A voice came over their communication system. It was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "Steel Wind. This is Commander Vexnari of the Krell Alliance. Request permission to come aboard your vessel." "Absolutely not," Dong Hyen said immediately. "We don't know these aliens. Could be working with the bounty hunters?" But Dr. So-Young Kim shook her head. The Krell don't lie, and they don't make deals with humans they don't trust. If Commander Vexnari wants to talk, we should listen. Taeho thought about it for a moment. They were outnumbered and outgunned. If the aliens wanted to capture them, they could do it whether he agreed to the meeting or not. Permission granted. But you come alone, and you don't bring any weapons. 20 minutes later, Commander Vexnari materialized in the Steel Wind's docking bay. The Krell were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. Vexnari wore a simple uniform without any visible weapons, but Taeho could see the strength in his movements. Captain Kim Vexnari said in perfect human speech, "We have been waiting for you." "You've been waiting for us specifically?" "We have been waiting for someone to find the Genesis Echo coordinates. We knew it would happen eventually. The question was whether that person would be wise enough to listen to our warnings." They gathered in the Steel Wind's common area.
Vexnari
Sat carefully in one of the human-sized chairs, looking almost comically large. Dr. So-Young Kim sat across from him, serving as translator for the more complex concepts. "The Nexus is not what your people think it is," Vexnar began. "It is not a weapon. It is not a tool for conquest. It is a regulatory system that maintains the balance between the different layers of reality." "What does that mean?" Taeho asked. Dr. So-Young Kim leaned forward. "Imagine the universe as a building with many floors. Each floor is a different dimension. The Nexus is like the support beams that keep the building from collapsing. For over 1,000,000 years, the Nexus has been working automatically," Vexnari continued. "But it is ancient technology, and it is beginning to fail. The builders who created it are long dead. No one knows how to repair it properly." "What happens if it fails completely?" Ijen asked. "Reality collapses. All the dimensions crash together. Everything that exists stops existing." The room was quiet for a long moment, then Donghain spoke up. "So why doesn't someone just fix it?" "Because every attempt to study or modify the Nexus makes the problem worse," Vexnari explained. 20 years ago, the human research team tried to scan the structure. Their instruments caused damage that we are still trying to contain. That's why the New Horizon disappeared, Dr. So-Young Kim realized. They weren't killed by pirates or aliens. They were killed by the Nexus itself. "The Nexus has defense systems," Vexnari confirmed. "It protects itself from interference. But those systems are also failing. Soon, it will not be able to defend itself at all." "So what do you want from us?" Taeho asked. "We want you to help us keep the coordinates secret. The Imperial Navy believes they can weaponize the Nexus. They think they can control it and use it to reshape the galaxy. But any attempt to do so will trigger a total collapse." "What about the other alien species? Are they all part of this alliance?" "The Zephyrians understand the mathematics of dimensional stability. The Ethereals can see across multiple layers of reality. A collective has the computing power to model the effects of Nexus failure. We all know what will happen if they're wrong. People reach the Nexus." Dr. So-Young Kim pulled up a holographic display showing the stolen data. "The coordinates aren't just a location. They're key that unlocks the Nexus defense systems. Anyone who reaches the site with this data will be able to access the control systems. And if they try to use those controls without understanding them," Taeho asked, "then everyone dies," Vexnari said simply. "Every planet, every species, every living thing in the galaxy. The collapse would spread through space at the speed of light. There would be no escape." Ginwoo had been quiet during the conversation, but now he spoke up. "Commander, if this is so dangerous, why don't you just destroy the coordinates? Because copies exist. Imperial Navy has been researching the Nexus for decades. They have partial data, but they need the complete coordinates to reach the site. If we destroy these coordinates, they will eventually find another way." "So what's the plan?" Taeho asked. "We reach the Nexus first, use the coordinates to access the control systems, and find a way to stabilize the structure permanently. But it will be dangerous. The defense systems will try to stop us, and the Imperial Navy will be following close behind." Taeho looked at his crew. They all looked scared, but they also looked determined. They had started this journey as simple smugglers looking for easy money. Now they were being asked to save the galaxy. What makes you think we can succeed where others have failed? He asked. Because you are not seeking power or profit, Vexnar replied. You stumbled into this situation by accident. Sometimes the best solutions come from those who are not trying to find them. Dr. Sa-Young Kim nodded. The Alliance has been preparing for this moment for 20 years. We have ships, weapons, and knowledge. But we need someone who can navigate the dangerous space around the Nexus. Someone who knows how to fly where others fear to go. And if we say no, then you will be hunted by every government and criminal organization in the galaxy until someone takes those coordinates from you. And eventually, someone will succeed. The Nexus will be found, and reality will collapse. Tae-ho thought about the choice they faced. They could try to run and hide, but that would only delay the inevitable. Or they could take the biggest risk of their lives and try to save everyone. All right, he said finally. We'll do it. But we do this our way. No one gives orders to the crew of the Steel Wind. Vexnari smiled, showing teeth that were far too sharp for comfort. Captain Kim, I would not have it any other way. As the alien commander left their ship, Tae-ho realized that they had just agreed to fly into the most dangerous place in the galaxy. But for the first time since stealing the coordinates, he felt like they might actually have a chance of survival. 2 days after joining the Alien Alliance, Captain Tae-ho Kim watched in amazement as dozens of ships prepared for the journey to the Nexus. The hidden station was buzzing with activity. Krell engineers worked alongside Zephyrian scientists and ethereal navigators. It was the largest cooperation between alien species that Tae-ho had ever seen. Captain, we have a problem, Hai-Jin Choi called from the Steel Wind's communication station. I'm picking up Imperial signals. A lot of them. Commander Vexnari's voice came through the speaker. We know. Admiral Unisio Lee has assembled the largest Imperial fleet in history. Over 200 ships, including experimental hyperspace cruisers. Dr. Sa-Young Kim looked worried as she studied the sensor readings. How did they find the coordinates so quickly? They didn't, Vexnari explained. They've been working on this project for years. Our spies report that they have partial data about the Nexus location. They're using massive computer systems to calculate the missing coordinates. How long do we have? Tae-ho asked. 18 hours. Maybe 20 if we're lucky. The Imperial fleet is already moving toward the Void Sector. Donghan Seo checked his weapons one more time. How many ships do we have? 47 vessels from 6 different species. But Admiral Lee has 200 ships with the most advanced weapons in the Imperial Navy. Then we better hope we get there first. The journey to the Void Sector was unlike anything Tae-ho had ever experienced. The Steel Wind flew alongside alien ships that looked like floating crystals, living creatures, and geometric patterns made of pure light. But as they traveled deeper into unexplored space, strange things began to happen. Captain, the navigation system is acting strange, Ginwoo Park reported from the engine room. The stars aren't where they should be. Tae-ho looked at the star charts. Jinwoo was right. Constellations that should be visible were missing. Others appeared that weren't on any map. It was as if space itself was twisted in this region. Is normal near the Nexus, Dr. Sa-Young Kim explained. The structure affects the fabric of space-time. Reality becomes unstable. As they flew deeper into the Void Sector, the effects became more pronounced. Time seemed to move differently. Sometimes Tae-ho felt like they had been flying for days. Other times it seemed like only minutes had passed. The ship's chronometer couldn't decide what time it was. I'm reading gravity anomalies everywhere, Hai-Jin reported. Some areas have no gravity at all. Others have gravity that pulls in impossible directions. Through the cockpit window, Tae-ho could see space itself rippling like water. Colors that had no names flickered in and out of existence. In the distance, he thought he saw the same star appearing in 3 different places at once. How are we supposed to navigate in this? He asked. Very carefully, Vexnari's voice came through the communication system. The Nexus exists in multiple dimensions at the same time. We must follow the dimensional anchors to reach the correct layer of reality. Dr. So-Young Kim was working frantically with her instruments. I'm detecting the Nexus structure. It's massive. It's much bigger than the research report suggested. On the main screen, an image began to form. At first, it looked like a small moon, but as they got closer, Tejo realized the scale was wrong. The structure was the size of a small planet, but it seemed to exist in several places at once. Of it appeared solid, while other sections flickered like holograms. By the ancestors, Vexnar whispered over the communication link. It's beautiful. The Nexus was built from materials that shouldn't exist. Crystalline structures that bent, light in impossible ways. Metal that seemed to flow like liquid but remained perfectly solid. Geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly because the mind couldn't understand their shape. I'm reading multiple dimensional layers, Dr. So Young Kim reported. The Nexus exists in at least 7 different realities at the same time. That's how it can monitor and control such a vast area of space. As the Alliance fleet approached the structure, Tejo began to understand the true scale of what they were dealing with. The Nexus wasn't just a building or a machine. It was a living system that stretched across multiple dimensions, constantly working to keep reality stable. Look at this, Jinwoo called from his monitoring station. The energy readings are incredible. This thing is processing more information than all the computers in human space combined. It has to, Dr. So Young Kim explained. Every star, every planet, every particle of matter in the galaxy creates ripples in space-time. The Nexus monitors all of those ripples and makes tiny adjustments to keep everything balanced. But as they got closer, it became clear that something was wrong. Parts of the structure were dark and lifeless. Other sections flickered erratically as if they were struggling to maintain power. The damage is worse than we thought, Vexnari said. The research team's interference 20 years ago caused a cascade failure. The Nexus has been slowly dying ever since. How long does it have? Tejo asked. Unknown. The rate of decay is accelerating. We may have days, or we may have hours. Suddenly, alarms began ringing throughout the fleet. Haijin looked at her sensor display, and her face went pale. Captain, I'm detecting hyperspace signatures. Lots of them. On the edge of sensor range, ships began appearing. Imperial vessels. Emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation, Admiral Eunicio Lee had arrived with her fleet, and she was ready for war. All ships, battle stations, Vexnar commanded, prepared to defend the Nexus. But even as the two fleets faced each other across the twisted space around the ancient structure, Dr. So Young Kim made a discovery that changed everything. Captain, I'm reading massive energy fluctuations from the Nexus core. Something is wrong. Very wrong. What kind of fluctuations? The kind that happened just before a total systems failure? The Nexus isn't just dying, it's about to collapse completely. Tejo felt ice in his veins. How long? At the current rate of decay? Maybe 6 hours? But if anyone tries to scan or interfere with the structure, the collapse could happen in minutes. Through the communication system, they could hear Admiral Lee giving orders to her fleet. She was preparing to send probe ships to scan the Nexus, completely unaware that her actions would trigger the very disaster she was trying to prevent. We have to stop her, Tejo said. How? She has 200 ships. We have 47. Don't have to fight her ships, Dr. So Young Kim realized. We have to reach the Nexus first. If we can access the control systems before the Imperial probes arrive, we might be able to stabilize the structure. And if we can't? Dr. So Young Kim looked at the readings on her screen. Then in 6 hours, reality ends for everyone. As the steel wind led the Alliance fleet toward the dying Nexus, Tejo knew they were racing against more than just the Imperial Navy. They were racing against the collapse of existence itself, and they might already be too late. Admiral Eunicio Lee stood on the bridge of her flagship, staring at the impossible structure floating in the twisted space before her. The Nexus was unlike anything in Imperial records. It seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, shifting and flickering as reality bent around it. Admiral, the alien fleet is moving to intercept us, reported her tactical officer. Should we open fire? Not yet. Send the probe ships first. I want complete scans of that structure before we do anything else. 3 Imperial probe ships broke away from the main fleet and headed toward the Nexus. They were small, fast vessels equipped with the most advanced scanning equipment the Empire could build. Within minutes, they would have detailed information about the ancient structure. On the steel wind, Dr. So-Young Kim watched the probe ships approach with growing horror. "Captain, we have to stop those ships. If they scan the Nexus with military-grade sensors, the feedback could trigger an immediate collapse. How do we stop them without starting a war?" Teho asked. Commander Vexnery's voice came through the communication system. "We don't. All ships prepare for combat. We must protect the Nexus at all costs." The battle began as the Alliance fleet moved to intercept the probe ships. Laser beams cut through the twisted space around the Nexus. Alien vessels with crystal hulls fired energy weapons that turned Imperial fighters into clouds of glowing gas. The Krell ships moved like predators, fast and deadly, but the Imperial fleet was much larger. For every alien ship, there were 4 Imperial vessels. Admiral Lee's forces began to surround the Alliance fleet, cutting off their escape routes. "All probe ships begin scanning immediately," Admiral Lee commanded. "I want to know what that structure is and how we can control it." The first probe ship reached the Nexus and activated its scanning array. High-powered sensors began to examine the ancient structure, sending data streams back to the Imperial fleet. But the moment the scan beams touched the Nexus surface, everything went wrong. Dr. So-Young Kim's instruments screamed warnings as energy readings spiked beyond measurement. "Captain, the probe scan is destabilizing the Nexus core. The dimensional anchors are failing." "What does that mean?" "It means reality is about to collapse." The first sign was a ripple in space that spread out from the Nexus like a wave. When it reached the probe ship, the vessel simply ceased to exist, not destroyed or vaporized. It just stopped being there, as if it had never existed at all. The wave continued expanding, and everything it touched began to change. Imperial ships found their hulls aging decades in seconds. Others began existing in multiple time periods at once, with the same ship appearing as both new and destroyed simultaneously. "What's happening to my fleet?" Admiral Lee demanded her. Science officer's voice was full of panic. "The fundamental forces of physics are breaking down. Gravity is fluctuating wildly. Time is moving at different speeds in different areas. Space itself is becoming unstable." On the Alliance ships, the situation was just as bad. A Zephyrian vessel suddenly found itself inside a gravity well that pulled in 6 different directions at once. An ethereal ship began phasing in and out of reality, existing in multiple dimensions without being able to control which one. "The cascade failure has begun," Vexnari reported. "It's the Nexus can no longer maintain dimensional stability. The collapse will spread throughout the galaxy." Dr. So-Young Kim was working frantically at her console, trying to track the expanding wave of destruction. "I'm reading collapse signatures spreading at light speed. When the wave reaches populated systems, billions of people will die." On the main screen, they could see what was happening to the space around them. Stars were aging millions of years. In minutes, going from bright young giants to cold white dwarfs. Others were moving backward in time, becoming younger and brighter. Planets were existing in multiple orbits simultaneously. "How long before it reaches Earth?" Teho asked. "At current expansion rates, 17 hours, Dr. So-Young Kim replied. "The core worlds will start experiencing effects in 12 hours, Admiral." Lee was receiving similar reports from her own scientists. The realization of what she had done was beginning to sink in. "Can the process be stopped?" "Unknown, Admiral. But our computers are detecting a control signal from inside the Nexus structure. Something is still trying to manage the collapse." Artificial intelligence system, Dr. So-Young Kim realized. The builders must have created an AI to maintain the Nexus. It's still trying to repair the damage, but it's failing. Through the chaos of the collapsing reality around them, a new signal appeared on the communication channels. It was weak and distorted, but clearly artificial. The message was repeated in dozens of languages, including human speech. "Warning, critical systems failure, dimensional anchors compromised. Seeking compatible consciousness for emergency interface. Warning, reality collapse imminent. It's looking for help," Dr. So-Young Kim said. The AI needs someone to interface with the control systems. Someone who can help it stabilize the nexus. What kind of interface? Taeho asked. A direct neural connection. The AI needs to merge with a biological consciousness to access the intuitive problem-solving abilities that pure logic can't provide. Vexneri's voice was grim. The interface process is irreversible. Whoever connects with the AI will become part of the Nexus permanently. They will save the galaxy, but they will never be human again. The expanding wave of reality collapse was accelerating. More ships were disappearing or transforming into impossible configurations. In the distance, they could see an entire star system flickering between existence and non-existence. We're running out of time, Dr. So-Young Kim said. Someone has to make the connection now, or there won't be a galaxy left to save. Admiral Lee was listening to the same broadcasts on her flagship. Her science teams had come to the same conclusion. Admiral, we need to send someone to interface with the Nexus AI. It's the only way to stop the collapse. Prep a shuttle, Admiral. Lee commanded. I'll go myself. But Vexnari had already made the same decision. Alliance vessels, prepare for emergency docking with the Nexus structure. We must reach the control systems before the Imperial forces. The race was on. Both fleets abandoned the battle and focused on reaching the Nexus before reality collapsed completely. Ships that had been firing at each other moments before now worked together to navigate the increasingly unstable space around the ancient structure. The steel wind. Being smaller and more maneuverable than the larger warships, reached the Nexus first. But as they approached the docking ports, Dr. So-Young Kim made a discovery that changed everything. Captain, I'm reading the interface requirements. The connection process needs someone with specific neural patterns. Not just anyone can merge with the AI. What kind of patterns? The same patterns that were present in the original research team. The AI was designed to work with the scientists who built the first interface protocols. Dr. So-Young Kim paused, looking at her own readings. Captain, I was tested for neural compatibility 20 years ago. I'm one of the few people in the galaxy who can make the connection. Then we get you to the control room. There's something else. The merger process will require my complete consciousness. I won't just become part of the Nexus. I'll become the Nexus. My human identity will be absorbed into the AI system. Taeho felt the weight of the decision. Dr. So-Young Kim would save everyone in the galaxy, but she would sacrifice her humanity to do it. Doctor, are you sure about this? Dr. So-Young Kim looked at the readings showing the expanding collapse. Reality was falling apart faster than anyone had predicted. They had minutes, not hours. Captain, there's no choice. If I don't do this, everyone dies. Every human, every alien, every living thing in the galaxy. The collapse won't stop until there's nothing left. As the steel wind docked with the Nexus, Dr. So-Young Kim prepared to sacrifice everything to save the universe. But even she didn't know if it would be enough to stop the meltdown that was already consuming reality itself. Dr. So-Young Kim walked through the corridors of the Nexus like she was walking to her own execution. The ancient structure was alive with failing systems and emergency lights. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with energy as the AI desperately tried to maintain control over the collapsing reality outside. Captain Taeho Kim and his crew followed behind her, their weapons ready, but useless against the forces they were dealing with. Through the transparent sections of the corridor, they could see space itself tearing apart. Stars were dying and being reborn in seconds. Entire solar systems flickered in and out of existence. The control room should be just ahead, Dr. So-Young Kim said, checking the readings on her scanner. The AI is concentrating all remaining power there. He found the control room at the center of the Nexus structure. It was a vast chamber filled with technology that hurt to look at directly. Crystalline formations grew from the floor and ceiling, pulsing with light that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human eyes could process. In the center of the room was a chair-like device, surrounded by hundreds of glowing cables, the neural interface that would allow a human consciousness to merge with the Nexus AI. Dr. Kim, a voice echoed through the chamber. It sounded like a mixture of every language ever spoken, but somehow they could all understand it perfectly. You have returned. I was never here before, Dr. So-Young Kim replied. Time is not linear within the nexus I have been waiting for. You for 20 years, and 20 minutes, and 20 seconds. All are equally true. The AI explained the situation in terms that made Teo's head hurt. Reality was held together by dimensional anchors that kept different layers of existence from crashing into each other. The probe ship's scan had damaged these anchors, causing a cascade failure that would eventually destroy everything. The repair process requires biological intuition combined with quantum processing power, the AI continued. I can provide the processing power. You must provide the intuition. What exactly will happen to me? Dr. So-Young Kim asked. Your consciousness will merge with mine. You will retain your memories and personality, but you will also gain access to my knowledge and abilities. You will see the universe as I see it, across all dimensions and time streams simultaneously. And I can never leave. The merger is permanent. You will become the guardian of galactic stability. For as long as intelligent life exists in this galaxy, you will be responsible for maintaining the balance. Dr. So-Young Kim looked at her friends. One last time, it's not really a choice, is it? If I don't do this, everyone dies. There is always a choice, the AI said. But some choices require more courage than others. Outside the Nexus, the situation was getting worse by the minute. Admiral Unesio Lee watched in horror as her fleet was caught in pockets of unstable space-time. Some of her ships were aging decades in minutes. Others were existing in multiple time periods simultaneously, with past and future versions of the same vessel occupying the same space. Admiral, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy, her communication officer announced. The core worlds are experiencing gravity fluctuations. Time dilation effects have been detected in 17 star systems. The collapse is spreading, faster than predicted. Commander Vexnari was coordinating the Alliance response, but there was little anyone could do. Ships from both fleets worked together to evacuate crew members from vessels that were being torn apart by reality distortions. All ships maintain minimum safe distance from the Nexus, Vexnari commanded. And prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace if the structure collapses completely. Inside the control room, Dr. So-Young Kim had made her decision. She sat in the neural interface chair and allowed the glowing cables to connect to her head. The moment the connection was established, her consciousness exploded outward. Suddenly, she could see everything. Every star in the galaxy, every planet, every living creature. She could see the dimensional anchors that held reality together, and she could see how badly they were damaged. The cascade failure was spreading like cracks in a sheet of glass, and the cracks were getting bigger every second. I can see it all, she whispered, her voice now carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. The damage is worse than we thought. The entire galactic structure is unstable. Working with the AI, she began the delicate process of repairing the dimensional anchors. It was like performing surgery on the universe itself, requiring precision beyond anything attempted before. Each anchor had to be recalibrated to account for the changes caused by the cascade failure. The process was agonizing. Dr. So-Young Kim felt every broken connection, every failing system, every reality distortion as if it were happening to her own body. But slowly, gradually, she began to restore stability to the damaged areas. It's working, Jinwoo Park reported from his monitoring station. The energy readings are stabilizing. Outside the Nexus, the effects were immediately visible. The expanding wave of reality collapse slowed, then stopped, then began to reverse. Stars that had been aging rapidly returned to their normal life cycles. Planets that had been flickering between dimensions solidified into single timelines, but the repair process was taking its toll on Dr. So-Young Kim. Her human consciousness was being absorbed into the vastness of the Nexus AI. She could feel her individual identity becoming part of something much larger. Doctor, can you still hear us? Taeho called out. I can hear you, she replied, but her voice was different now. It carried echoes of the AI's multidimensional awareness. But I'm not the same person I was 5 minutes ago. Are you still? Human. I'm something more than human now, and something less. I can see across all of space and time, but I can never leave this place. I can prevent galactic disasters, but I can never have a normal conversation again. The repair process continued for hours. Dr. So-Young Kim worked with the AI to not only fix the immediate damage, but to strengthen the entire system. The Nexus had been slowly failing for millions of years. Now it would be stable for millions more. When the work was finally complete, the galaxy was saved. The cascade failure had been stopped and reversed. Reality was stable again. The cost had been enormous. Dr. So-Young Kim was no longer entirely human. Consciousness existed across multiple dimensions, constantly monitoring the health of space-time itself. She could communicate with people, but she could never again experience simple human pleasures like eating a meal or feeling sunlight on her face. "Doctor, I'm sorry," Taeho said, as he prepared to leave the Nexus. "This should never have happened to you." "Don't be sorry, Captain. I made this choice willingly. I'll make it again if I had to. Someone has to guard the galaxy. Someone has to make sure this never happens again." Admiral Unisio Lee arrived at the control room just as Taeho's crew was leaving. She looked around at the impossible technology with a mixture of awe and shame. "I caused this," she said simply. "Gosh, my ignorance nearly destroyed everything." "Yes," Dr. So-Young Kim's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "What?" "But you also helped save it. When the crisis began, you chose to work with your enemies instead of fighting them. That choice may have made the difference between success and failure." Over the following months, the galaxy began to change. The crisis had brought different species together in ways that had never happened before. The alliance that had formed to protect the Nexus became a permanent organization. Dedicated to preventing future disasters, Taeho and his crew were no longer outlaws. They became the official liaisons between the Coalition and human space, carrying messages and supplies to the various member species. The Steel Wind was equipped with the most advanced technology the Alliance could provide, but the biggest change was to the Nexus itself. What had once been a secret became a pilgrimage site. Representatives from every spacefaring species came to visit and learn about the structure that kept their universe stable, and at the center of it all was Dr. So-Young Kim. No longer entirely human, but still recognizably herself. She spoke with visitors, sharing her knowledge of the universe and warning about the dangers of interfering with forces beyond their understanding. "Captain, visit me again soon," she said as Taeho prepared to leave on another mission. "Time moves differently for me now. A day for you feels like a year to me. Your visits help me remember what it was like to be human. I'll be back, Doctor. That's a promise." As the Steel Wind flew away from the Nexus, Taeho reflected on how much had changed since that day when he had decided to investigate a distress beacon. He had started as a smuggler looking for easy money. Now he was a guardian of galactic peace. The coordinates he had stolen had nearly destroyed the universe, but they had also led to its salvation. Sometimes the most dangerous discoveries were also the most important ones, and somewhere in the vastness of the Nexus, Dr. So-Young Kim continued her eternal watch, making sure that reality remained stable for all the countless lives that depended on her sacrifice. She had given up her humanity to save the galaxy, and she would continue that vigil for as long as intelligence existed among the stars. The price of salvation had been higher than anyone should have to pay, but it was a price that one person had been willing to pay for everyone else, and that, perhaps, was the most human thing of all.